Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. With Season 3 of Modern Warfare 2, we got a bunch of weapon updates. Now, some were Warzone specific, but some were also global, which means Modern Warfare 2's multiplayer meta was affected as well. And today we are breaking down the new Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer meta. Now, you might be saying, Zach, didn't you just do this a couple of days ago? That was entirely for Warzone specifically, where the meta is vastly different than what we have here in Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer. So this is just for the multiplayer side of things, where our list looks, very different. As mentioned, we have a lot more diversity in the multiplayer meta because of the lower health and that fast TTK, right? Now, initially here, we got to go ahead and we got to rank our two brand new weapons, the FJX Imperium and the Cronen Squall. Now, quite frankly, this one is a very easy option to me. The Cronen Squall currently is a top tier absolute meta weapon. It's definitely borderline here between the two. I think more than likely most players will find it's on average a top tier weapon rather than an absolute meta weapon. If you are very good at MW2 though, this would be an absolute meta option for you, because the semi-auto version of this is insanely good. You can spam it. It's still got the semi-auto damage though, so if you're landing headshots or upper torso shots, it's gonna fry. Fully auto, it's top tier. I would say the recoil is a little bit obnoxious, but overall it's a very good weapon and up there with the other battle rifles for sure. Then when it comes to the intervention, I mean, this is honestly just right there with the other snipers. I mean, all the snipers in this game feel very similar to one another, and because everything's already like a one-shot kill here in multiplayer, there's not a huge difference in any of the ones here between the Victus, the MCPR, the Signal, even some of the marksman rifles that act as snipers. They're all kind of on a level playing field. It's a very fun and very nostalgic weapon to use though, top tier for sure. Then we get into our pretty lengthy list of weapon adjustments that were made, the buffs, the nerfs, everything like that I'll be referencing over here, hence why I'm going to be turning so much. But initially here, the Hemlock actually caught a nerf. Several nerfs, really. They nerfed all of its damage ranges, so that damage drop off is going to happen a lot sooner now. They also nerfed the lower torso damage than the 300 blackout rounds. Some players like to run those. They got a huge recoil nerf, so there's going to be more recoil now. And they also buffed the headshot, but nerfed the range on that. So kind of rough there. Quite frankly, I feel like the Hemlock is going to drop down in with some of the other rifles here. I'd still say it's probably one of the better rifles in the top tier area, but I don't think it's that absolute meta option any longer, right? Still very good though. Now the M13 saw a couple of different changes here. It got a headshot and a lower torso damage buff, so both of those will feel a bit more consistent now. It got a mid-range damage buff as well, but it got an upper torso nerf. So a couple of buffs, a little bit of a nerf in there. Quite frankly, I feel like the M13 is still a little underpowered for multiplayer when you have other rifles like the M4, the Hemlock, TAC 56 Kastov. Regardless of where you're fighting with the M13, there's going to be something that best sits, so I'm just going to keep it in top tier for now. I'm going to stick with that, but it is still a pretty solid option, and it's going to be feeling a bit better than it was last season. This is one that personally I'm pretty excited about because it's a weapon that doesn't get a whole lot of attention, and that is the STB 556. It got a headshot, a leg, a lower torso, and a mid-range damage buff. Now its mid-range damage range caught a nerf, but it's still for the most part a positive change here to the STB 556. Again, I don't know if it's enough to bump it up into absolute meta. I'm really looking at things like the M4 and the 7.62 as like the peak for mid to long range there, and I don't think the STB is quite on that level yet, but it is feeling very good now after this update, and I'd highly recommend trying it out in multiplayer. Now, this is kind of an interesting one. The TAC 56 actually caught a nerf. Initially, the patch notes said that it got a headshot buff, which I was sitting there going, everyone's already using this in multiplayer. It's the #1 CDL rifle and competitive rifle right now. Like, they buffed it. It's going to be ridiculous. Then they said, oh, wait, no, we messed up. It's actually a headshot nerf. So the headshot multiplier on the TAC 56 going to be feeling a bit worse now. And I think for that reason, I'm going to drop it down in there with the Hemlock. Now, this I would say is, if it would let me bring it in front of the Hemlock, we'll just go for that. This is the best top tier rifle, but the M4, similar damage profile for multiplayer, very easy to use. I just find it to be a bit more consistent. And then you also have the 7.62, which has a far better TTK over long range, right? Because it's just the powerhouse. Harder to use, but better TTK, so higher risk, higher reward. The TAC 56 is still what I see most players using in, the ranked or CDL, but it's not going to be feeling as good as it was last season. That headshot nerf there is going to be important. Now, the FTAC Recon actually saw several updates here. It got a movement buff, a leg damage buff, and an upper torso buff, and quite frankly, the FTAC Recon, I feel like, honestly jumps up into that top tier area now. I don't think it's quite as good as the Cronen Squall. I'd still probably take that for a battle rifle, but it's like right there now. It's actually very aggressive and you can spam it, so it's going to be feeling pretty strong in my opinion. Now, outside of that, the Lockman 7.62 also caught a movement buff. That's not enough to make it jump up though. The SO14 caught a movement buff as well. Same deal there, not enough to bring it out of competitive. And then the TAC V also caught several updates. It got a movement buff and then also a leg damage buff, or a lower limb buff essentially. Not enough to bring it out of competitive, but at least it's finally getting some buffs here after they absolutely destroyed it for like no real reason. Now the RAL actually caught a headshot nerf here, which is kind of interesting. Also saw several nerfs to its semi-auto properties, but most players aren't using it in semi-auto. That said, when it comes to power, the RAL is still the #1 gun in the game for that overlong range. If you land your shots, nothing is going to be able to compete with the power and the damage output it has. It's just so painfully slow that I don't think it ever can actually be absolute meta unless they somehow go crazy with the damage. But RAL won't be hitting as hard as it was before. That said, a nerf to the RAL's damage is still not going to make it worse than the damage of multiple other long-range weapons. Honestly, even combined, it feels like. By the way, as we are going through all the weapon changes here today, quick reminder, if you are new to the channel, that every single day I got you covered with literally everything going on in COD. News, updates, loadouts, tips, you name it. It's all right here. So feel free to hit that subscribe button and turn on those post notifications. And then also, if you guys enjoy the video, if you find it helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it as well. Would be seriously appreciated. And I do want to give a quick shout out to my friends over at G Fuel. If you guys are ever looking to pick up a tub, a starter pack, some cans, you name it, code IMMORTAL at checkout gets you 20 to 30% off your entire order. Of course, if you're grinding season 3 here, whether it be in DMZ, multiplayer, Warzone 2, you name it, G Fuel is going to help make that grind a little bit easier, give you that extra step, that added boost when you're needing it. Personally, my top 3 favorite flavors right now: watermelon limeade, loving it, hype sauce, and then star fruit. 3 goats right there if you want to try them. Like I said, throw in code IMMORTAL at checkout. Link for that will be down in the description below. This is kind of a strange one. The RPK got a close and a mid-range damage nerf, and honestly, I feel like the RPK is now really not anything that crazy. I mean, the Sakin feels great. The HCR, I don't know why this isn't top tier. We're going to drop that one down some. But, I mean, Sakin and the RAL, when it comes to LMGs, feel very good. The RPK, though, not really that much anymore. I mean, it's just received several nerfs back to back to back here ever since it was that top tier meta gun. So no longer is that like a phenomenal option. Still can hold its own in the right hands, but definitely not something I consider top tier as of right now. Another strange one that I really didn't see coming, the Tempest Torrent kind of got destroyed. They killed all of its damage ranges. All of those got nerfs. It got a nerf to the close and mid-range damage, and it got a headshot nerf as well. So this one dropping down in with some of the other battle rifles and marksman rifles now, really, you know, just another one of those. Doesn't really feel unique and doesn't really have a standout, you know, power or TTK option now. It's just kind of there. Good, but nothing crazy. Then we get into some of the SMGs, and it's kind of an interesting conversation. We've got them kind of all over the place. The Bass P here actually got all of its ranges buffed, which is nice. And then it got an ADS speed buff. Now, it is still on the lower end of damage in the SMG range, like up close to the first 15 meters or so. It's nothing too crazy, and that for me is going to limit it to being in competitive for the moment. But for, you know, mid-range, it's actually pretty good for an SMG, and it's nice to see that it got some buffs there. The Lockman sub actually ended up getting a headshot nerf. Now, that in and of itself, I don't think is enough to drop it all the way down into just competitive. It's still going to be a great option for an SMG here for multiplayer in general. Just keep in mind, if you're landing your headshots, it's not going to feel like it's melting as much as it was, you know, back in Season 2 Reloaded. We also got an MX9 change here. The Sprintifier got buffed, and that to me is bringing us up into top tier. Honestly, borderline absolute meta, quite frankly. This thing is feeling very good right now. Super low recoil, great mobility, and its TTK is actually surprisingly good. So keeping my eye on the MX9. It's one that, you know, a lot of players might be switching to here, especially if it were to receive maybe 1 or 2 more buffs in some future updates. Now, the Vosnev ended up getting a headshot nerf here, so it's, again, going to feel just like the MP5, not nearly as strong as it was last season, but still overall pretty solid. The difference here, though, is that the Vosnev still has pretty decent damage to other parts of the body. The Vel caught a similar headshot nerf, but that to me does bring it down. Its headshot multiplier was a big aspect, and that headshot damage was a big aspect, so that to me does bring it more in line with like the MP5 or the MX9 or the Fennec, even in terms of overall, you know, effectiveness there. Still a very good choice. Like, it's still top tier alongside a lot of other guns, obviously, for different kinds of fights, for close range, mid range, long range, but it's not one that is gonna, you know, be winning the majority of gunfights now if you're going up against a PDSW or a Vaz or maybe a 74U or a Chimera. Overall, though, like I said, multiplayer is just so much more diverse than Warzone because the TTK is so fast and the health is lower, so you can get away with using so many different options, right? Things in competitive are, you know, nothing crazy. They're not going to be huge standouts, but you could use any one of these and do well with it. The absolute meta ones, I think, are pretty clear for close, mid-range, long-range. These options are going to be super consistent. And top tier, I mean, they're just on the verge of being super good. If they got one more update in the right direction, they could all be pushed up a little bit, right? So very diverse, very broad meta right now, which is a great sign. It is definitely trending in the right direction, I would say. That being said, that is going to wrap things up for today. This is how the Season 3 meta shakes out for Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer. If you guys enjoyed the video, let me know by dropping a like on it. And if you're new here, feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications. That way you can always guarantee you're up to date with everything going on in the world of Call of Duty. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.